Hello and welcome to the Meridian Productivity podcast. Our goal for these podcasts is to give you access to leaders, managers, various people to understand from their perspective the challenges of the moment in health and care and their thoughts on how these can be addressed. This is Meridian Productivity presents 10 Minutes with Sarbjit Clare. Sarb is Deputy Medical Director at Sandwell Birmingham Hospitals in Leaders Trust and is very passionate about role modelling, widening participation and increasing diversity at the top. She was awarded an MBE for her leadership during the pandemic. Not too bad from someone who grew up on a council estate. She's now using this platform to lift and empower others and has just launched her very own podcast, Women Empowering Women in Medicine. Sarb, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me and that great introduction.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Sarb, I want to kick things off first. What does mindset mean to you, and why is that so important in the work that you're currently working on right now?
Sure. I mean, mindset is absolutely key to anything you do. The way I see the world, I love to solve problems. So if there's a problem, we need to solve it. And it's about that positivity. I'm pragmatic and realistic, but it's about the way you see the world. It's interesting when you speak to colleagues, when, we've been in the same room, had the same conversation, but they come out interpreting it in a negative way, whereas I will go out interpreting it in a sort of positive way. So a lot of the work I'm doing is about mindset. It's about thinking differently, and more so for women, and women tend to be quite negative on themselves, quite harsh on themselves. They tend to have imposter syndrome, that I can't do it, I'm not good enough. And I've done a lot of work comparing looking at how men think and women think. And it's amazing, men will, go for that job, which actually they only score 2 out of 10 for the criteria, whereas women need to be perfectionists. So, when you go for any job, necessarily you will learn on the job, but it's about going for it, and it's about being brave and having the courage and not being afraid of failure. I think failure is part of success, and I think women are obsessed with being absolutely perfect in what they do, but that's what's leading them to be so negative and end up failing, and then it's sort of a vicious circle. So mindset is key in anything you do, whether it's professional or personal. I mean, I do a lot of running, and if I set myself a goal, okay, today I'm going to run 10 miles, I will run 10 miles. But if I had said, okay, I'm going to run half marathon, I will probably run the half marathon. So it's about goal setting, but the mind as well. And it's incredible how powerful the mind is. As I said, going back to running, you've got very high lactic acid levels in your legs, you're about to you think, I need to stop, but actually it's the mind that will drive you forward. And it's about, dealing with failure. How do you deal with failure? I've failed. I could go on, for hours talking about all my failures, but it's the failures that have made me a success, in the sense of learning from your failures, getting stronger from your failures, but also failure is part of success. There's no doubt about it, and actually you want to fail, because by doing that you will improve as an individual. So yeah, mindset is absolutely key, and all the things I'm doing, all the workshops and all the conferences I've done, is really about changing your mindset and thinking differently. You can't change people fundamentally. I've noticed, actually a lot of people, it's their personality, it's who you are, how you grew up and how you were brought up. But you can consciously think, okay, I'm not going to think, okay, I've had a bad day. I'm going to think differently. I'm going to think, okay, I feel like I've had a bad day because XYZ happened, but why did that happen and what can I learn from it? So yeah, it's about how you think and how you deal with things, and mindset is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, just touching on the work that you're doing to empower women specifically. With regard, I know we were talking earlier about how do you shine a spotlight on the obvious and not so obvious issues, challenges at the moment, without necessarily victimizing the situation. How have you gone about doing that? Because that's really interesting to me. I think it's quite hard to do, actually.
Yeah, I mean, in a few weeks' time, as we were saying earlier, I'm doing a workshop called "Stand by Me," not stand with me, not by me, and be an ally and change from a bystander to an upstander. So, I mean, I did a few workshops last year. One was called Fearless, and one was a conference where a lot of females feel they can't speak up about any issues, whether it's sexism, inappropriate behaviour, bullying, and so forth. So, and percentages are 70% are saying we're not going to speak up, we're not going to do this. But what we need to look for solutions, and if that's not going to happen, let's look at another strategy. So, this piece of work, we're looking at how can the people who are there as witnesses or bystanders who are around, how can they be involved? How can they change from being bystanders to upstanding and speaking for that individual, but not putting it, as you say, as onto the victim, but actually saying, what you've said there has offended me. It's not appropriate. Mm-hmm. So putting it onto the upstander and not on the victim, and then making the individual who's a perpetrator or who said whatever to make them shamed or make them think, okay, make them reflect, really, without having to go through all the formal processes, because in reality the formal processes are incredibly stressful. They take time, it's a lot of sleepless nights, and it may just be these little strategies that we can empower people with the skills and knowledge on how to do them, may diffuse a situation and change cultures. It's all about changing the cultures of where we work and the cultures of organisations.
Yeah, well, just on that point, I mean, just think about, at a board level, for you, why is gender balance so important within organisations, and especially at a board level?
Yeah, I'm incredibly passionate about that, and I've contributed some work within the UK where they were looking at, where are we? And we are way behind. I think we need to hire another 150 females to get gender balance within the UK, within the NHS. And the reality is, the evidence out there shows us that if there is gender balance at the top, but also diversity in culture, where people are from, to change the narrative, organisations do better. Financially, they're more effective, but more importantly, patients get better quality of care. And that completely makes sense. So if you look at the NHS, 77% of our workers are female, but only 30% of them are in leadership roles. If you look at our patients, the people that we serve, well, 50% will be female, but yet, then how are they being represented at the top? And we know that if you are in these boardrooms, if you are invited to these parties, or if you're invited to the special meetings, you can get your voice heard. You can represent, the diverse population that you're serving. You can challenge. I mean, what worries me is that we may have boardrooms where there are echo chambers. People are hiring the people they feel comfortable with because they look like themselves, they agree with them. But actually what we need to do is we need to have, the challenge there, have people that, will completely give a completely different point of view. For me, it just doesn't make sense. That, I mean, I work in Birmingham, and our population is completely diverse. Most of our population do not speak English, and yet, that is not reflected within the leadership. It needs, we need to reflect the people we serve, because if we do not do that, how can they possibly trust us? How can they connect with us? I mean, if we look at the government, that's the clear example, isn't it? How does the...
Absolutely. I mean, Yeah. No, I mean, I have this very, very, it's almost been sketched in my memory, this experience of we were in an area. We were doing some work. It was a very ethnically diverse area. And we had a meeting with the board, and there wasn't a single person on that board who was representative of the wider population. And in an area that was so ethnically diverse, it got me thinking about the amount of work that we need to do to encourage ethnic minorities in particular. From your work, Sarb, is there what sort of challenges do women face, particularly those who are an ethnic minority?
Yeah, I mean, a huge challenge. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is that we can't see it at the top because we're not represented. Where are our role models? And the role models that are there, that is not who we represent. They are not authentic, because at the end of the day, we want to be authentic leaders. So, it can't just be a tick box. So if you're going to hire, have gender balance and have diverse balance, it has to be the right people who've got the skills and have, the competence to do the job, and not, we need to get someone who's coloured onto the board or into this leadership position. So I think the biggest challenge is that because you don't see it, you feel you can't be it, and I think a lot of colleagues do not apply for these roles because it's just too difficult. Because when the people at the top, they do see, they think, well, actually, we don't want to have to behave like that to get into those roles or to carry out that role. So I think that's a really big challenge. I think other challenges are, of course, massive unconscious bias, the assumptions that, just pure assumptions that, I've been a doctor for 22 years and I still do not get referred or assume that I am a doctor on a daily round. I'm a consultant. So I promote hierarchy. Women need hierarchy. I need a title. Otherwise, I won't be referred to as a doctor. I'm still referred to as other roles. And this is 2021. And despite you introducing yourself as I'm Dr. Clare, I'm the consultant, the patient often will look at the male white junior doctor who's at least 30 years my junior. Wow. So you can see these are big challenges that we face on an everyday basis, which is that unconscious bias, not just from colleagues but from patients as well. But also, it's also about, we've talked about gender balance and diverse, but the other thing that I'm really passionate about is individuals who do not come from the traditional backgrounds that medics traditionally come from. And I'm talking about I grew up in a council estate, and it was tough because you can't relate to the majority of people that you have studied with or work with, and that is even tough. But it's about role modelling, and there's lots of solutions. So that's where I feel that it's a real opportunity for me. I'm in a privileged position to be able to role model to those who are from less privileged backgrounds, who are incredibly bright, who've got, it's about opening those doors up for them. It's about saying, yes, you can do it. It's about giving them permission and saying, look, I came from where you came from, and look at me now. So if I can do it, you can do it. And I really wish I had, there's a huge amount of initiatives going on in the UK about getting a lot more kids into university from unprivileged backgrounds and opening more doors up for them and stuff. And I wish I had that when I was a kid. And I think this is brilliant, but we need to do more. Because the reality of it is, if you go into medicine, it's not about being clever. It's about caring. It's about having empathy. It's about having life experience. And if you've got no life experience, how can you connect with your patients? A patient who is sick or is dying wants someone who will listen and care, and in reality, they don't really want, doctors telling them the inside outs of research and things like that. They want real humanity, and that is what a doctor's all about. And there's huge potential out there. We just need to tap into it. And unfortunately, these careers, law, medicine, and so forth, have always been for the privileged. But why is that? So that's where I'm here challenging and hopefully opening and inspiring the kids and the future of tomorrow that they can do it as well.
Absolutely. It's really encouraging stuff. what would be your advice, and what would be your, I suppose, your ideas around creating an empowering culture within organizations? What would be your advice who are perhaps in leadership who want to try to create a more empowering culture?
Yeah, I think it's all about a few I think it's about, my leadership style, I'm very altruistic, I am incredibly selfless. Leadership is all about people you serve. So always putting others first. And I think if you want to create a culture which is thriving and flourishing as leaders within the organisation, you need to be able to show people that you care about them and that you want to develop them and you value them and you connect with them. But by connection, you have to be vulnerable. You have to go down to the floor. You have to be able to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I failed, I did this. So I think leadership is absolutely key to enable empowerment and give people permission to make mistakes. But also, you want to invest in them, because at the end of the day, people want to go to work because they want to do a good job. But it's your job is to be able to create that environment for them to flourish. And I often feel that, we need to move away from that traditional leadership style, which is sort of, didactic and, at the top. There needs to be connection and that sort of real, there's a lot of talk about it, but we need to walk the walk. And the work I'm doing is really about empowering people with the skills, but also saying it's not just you that's going through this, it's all of us. We're all experiencing it, and it's about sharing experiences and giving people top tips. I've gone through lots of things. Why should the next person coming up have to go through those mistakes? Let me share you the top tips so you don't have to go through what I did. So it's really about giving people and putting other people first, and that's what I believe empowerment is all about.
Absolutely. This is a very short podcast for you, but I'm sure we'll have a much more longer one at some point. But finally, Sarb, where can people find you?
I can give access to, if people want to speak to me, I'm happy to share my email. I do have a podcast myself, the Women Empowering Women in Medicine, and we have a website with that as well. So I can share those links with you. I'm really happy to talk to anybody, advise them and share my journey, as well as sort of share the work that we're doing, because the work that we're doing within our organisation is quite unique. It's not been done really elsewhere, because we are touching sort of quite sort of controversial, not controversial, but things that people don't really talk about. So I think that's really important to touch these things that happens, but we don't really talk about. But I'm really would welcome speaking to anybody who's keen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time this morning, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you and your progress on your very, very interesting mission, and obviously wish you all the best. Thank you very much.